dear former presidents and President slash Chief Trump. Um, Joshua Julian is one of the people I never hung out with him. He used the word party too. He goes, "Oh, I partied with you." I did not party with him. I didn't know a whole bunch of people when I was a freshman. You know, increasingly there were people with their intelligence families I never had anything to do with who were putting fake things in databases behind my back. Total strangers to me. And ones I barely know. They may try to make fake exceptions. That come with demonstrations of the same thing in their rules, time, collusion, slash S, with all the different countries and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and now terrorists too. These are ones involved with the World Trade Center attack. Robert Rodriguez too is one of the ones involved with Facebook with the FBI and how they have rules with state police, families, interstates, with people involved with sequence shifts and federal evidences, crimes, and predicate acts on my street from other areas, who are ones involved with interbranch forging and switching names, as the Weathersfield police involved with predicate acts against me. If I was trying to hurt them, I would get them on paper. Without telling them that. You know, when I did that, when I had to, because I caught them. I had not, but now I forced them onto paper. They had to fake things and fake conversations with me. A Leahy family is one of the ones involved intercities with medical and child and digital offenders of kids, and with judges and prosecutors speaking fake things and delusions into records with them. Also, rules forging names of doctors. There are proofs. They forged the names of doctors, like a Dr. Shamsi Ali. Also has collusions with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, also with as people increasingly involved with the Saudi attackers, with people who have time collusion slash us with their syntax and sequence shifts at crime scenes and next to them, and one's not even realized as crime scenes relative to where and how. What black people's whites of eyes are, with that left out and replaced. What nature communicates about it, and what our founders did. This a breaching method that reassigned what was practical or reason relative to the hyper evidential, like how we have black people's whites of eyes projected to us by the identity that no one could invent. Otherwise, it demonstrates to us proofs of it. All exceptions, exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other. They come with quality aspects of factuary nature. And factuary nature itself manifest as ways that show that we have to address how, since before the inception of modern agencies and courts and political bodies of syntax nature, value slash value progression, we have had replaced what our founders communicated. We have had that relied upon by postures of integrity, theaters of integrity as criminal insidiousness nature, criminally foreign influence slash hypercriminally foreign influence. I am not a lawyer. Lawyers all sides of criminal and civil cases. A Trento, I barely had any words with him at all, and or nor with his whoever works for them. They have rules changing what people say into conspiracy theories, and then demonstrating that he's leaking his rules with intelligence, foreign and domestic, and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. Actually, WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves completely about the World Trade Center attack, and they attached me to fake conversations with other people about that, and they faked and hid what I said to them, what I communicated over digital and over the phones, and what was recorded over messages on answering machines, not just my own, a whole bunch of messages on my own to me and others, with all kinds of confessions and demonstrations of roles with more natures of organized crimes. And like drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, the same ones with prosecutors and judges and their own kids involved, with digital crimes with them, changing and faking what's digitally recorded, hiding how they have roles self-value with all natures of investigation investigators, their campuses, self-value roles with predicate acts with facts, black pupils. So there's a judge Napolitano who's an intelligent person about how the law is read. But see, they came through campuses A through Z. That is that here Anthony. In other words, we don't leave out how we have black people's rights of eyes in the revelations. We have it shown simultaneously. We're showing that hyper additionally, there are other species bodies that also have quality aspects in nature that are distinct from ourselves, but also non-distinct and simultaneously, but also further hyper simultaneous. I'm going to say slash further hyper simultaneous, because it's three distinct identities of relationship to itself that are only increasing value simultaneously. Where and how any subject we can see, there's one identity of truth that is true always in its way, hypernated pure, where it is already equal relativity to positive and negative equally, but is where it is a quality of diffusion, as each is, where we are already, what is positive to us and negative to us is already simultaneous, but we are a quality of diffusion too. And then even if things become more positive or negative, at the same time, we are a quality of diffusion. But for a system that we have ignored, because we have only known it ignored, and the demonstrations of that, they were effectively employed since before modern religious messengers to have roles, using it to sense through our own as A through Z, and then hyper additionally as the voicing slash S for the grounds difference slash differences, an identity of relationship to itself, that identity which is not the other species body, it is not our own species body, but it is both anyway. It is hyper invisible but still discernible, just as it is to all parts of English grammar, being invisible but still discernible. It is why and is how. Hyper additionally, the names for the verbs and or for the relativity slash hyper relativity of the verbs to this, like a predicate is a hyper additional name for a verb. We need to appreciate than just the name for a verb, because this is the volume science about identity. And identity, the identity that is projecting to us, the other species bodies, the species that are not even our own, birds, fish. Fish have like two eyes. You ever see some of the fish have eyes that just look like human eyes? And quality fish, you judge if the eyes are clear. If they don't have clear eyes, you're not supposed to buy the fish. But think about it, the whole entire ocean is polluted because we are only one species body, but we have been criminally foreign influenced slash hyper criminally foreign influenced since some ancient times. And no one wanted that. But where and how people describe it, and where and how they have to start, where they are forced to begin, it's from a psychopath. What are witch trials about simultaneously? The slavery that was entrenched. See, these are subjects. This breaching method measures and maintains we are separating the hyper evidential. We are valuing the breaching method that showed everyone how to appreciate the communications of our founders. Its way, changing it, self-valued roles as use/s of their words, leaving out what they declassified about that, leaving out what they declassified about that breaching method. /s, not just where and how, formally and private too, and all readings of statutes and precedents and exception nature, read for the breaching method as collusion/s, not by accident still, at and next to corrections officers, at and next to judicial officers, roles of all kinds of predicate acts with fax methods, all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, instances, totally made up but for themselves, but also made up by themselves. The overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, a whole bunch of different countries, the campuses, databases, relationships further from this, then further the campuses at rather. And the difference of that right back to all location/s. Where difference is we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. That is also being shown to us. Where and how and what. Why? The identity that is distinctly hyper invisible but still discernible is being shown to us. Again, it is that is what we're discerning when we discern the value of the invisible, of the discernment of the invisible but still discernible as the parts of speech of grammars, not just English, but of English grammar. It was revealed to be taught this way. Appreciating the identity the sciences share as this identity, where its answers are replaced simultaneously with our founders' communication, simultaneously as collusion/s with where and how it's gotten away with, and then with use/s of that, even worse than that, to keep everyone fighting to change and fake, or to self-value being changed to fake, or to self-value roles with use/s of predicate acts for facts stacked into databases at every age and nature of campus, and with people, the phenomenon of people on Valleycrest Street in Wethersfield. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, increasingly involved with wire crimes, intercities, with intelligence, and with the Wethersfield and people associated with the Wethersfield elections locations, and the Wethersfield town offices, and Wethersfield mayors involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, at middle schools and grammar schools, attaching kids to fake ties to each other, fake natures of ties to each other, as collusion/s, at the same time, again, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, now terrorists, all kinds of sexual natures too, because their roles were different. Having had roles on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and their lawyers and their family members, their neighbors, their sources, the news at the same time, the court's names, forging and switching names and sequences, stacking predicate acts with facts collusion/s into databases. Never stopped having the differences of the guilt there, or at the other natures of formal database relationships since before computer. The identities of relativity to ourselves, and the identity of relativity as the republic for which we stand, and its campuses system/s, the campus Marcias. It has been self. It was forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, only remembered everywhere the republic was, criminally re-engineered, incapable of affording how it appreciated, because nature shows us to, Exceptions were in how people weren't part of the republic. Exceptions in exception nature. In other words, where how the republic was designed to be led by the hyper invisible but still discernible. No one could do that. No one, because we could force that quality fact human nature here. In other words, but the gateway to every nature of business has them entertaining how the businesses are syntax and natures of debate that can't get away with that. Like they need to pretend to have the value of faith in the need to have faith in some name of an agency like FBI or CIA or Marines or Air Force or Navy or fire departments quicker than day. So this breaching method employed. The three branches of government, the difference of them or the intelligence was criminally foreign influence more, or with the guilt too. Because the difference of that, in estimation of it or not, all that is used remotely by the hyper sophistication here. That was entrenched before our founders were born. As that which designed the suburbs tactically denatured for a torture, extortion, slavery method. Fact on everyone, therefore physically on everyone. All exceptions in exception nature. Ed knew that nature would show how are demonstrating the same thing. Come with the demonstration is the same thing. And how it is hyper additional nature involved. Though. But see those exceptions, everyone when not just systems tactical ulterior from natures. But then people want to speak about truth or lies. Others communicated for our founders in our faces that is forced. So you guys were child abused. We need. It's not just that America. There are proofs that the communications of Mao Zedong were replaced. There are proofs that there's more. The proofs that the communications of James Madison and of our founders were replaced. We were directed. I read we were directed to refer to our founders as the plural, as James Madison and his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to help them and to use that plan. And England's identity was larger than itself because of how the breaching method used and uses names, even if it's a whole country together, even if it's all any grouping of humanity. They are now groupings tactical ulterior from our own. The breaching method knows that their syntax will have to self-value the quality aspects of nature, the fact-sheet nature, quality aspects of nature at locations, areas, and states. Being and having been criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. While they're forced to, like with the legal treatments against the president's Democrat and Republican, against the individual voice, and no matter who you are. If it is not entertaining, criminally foreign influence, tactic, delusions, raw, quality aspects, in fact, treating nature as criminal insidious in its nature. Per nature's definition, I'm not a lawyer. Nature shows us this, black pupils. We have to understand the difference between their facts used to get over on us when we want to use the hyper evidential here, or their nature used. Because you guys are psychopaths when you leave out how we have black people's whites of eyes. And it has significance. And that significance also comes as a means to discern a predicate acts with facts method concentrated at all locations /s. Everywhere the species body has a body standing. And it was also entrenched before America's founders were even born, and having been sustained against them and the Native Americans further, sickly, distinctly. Further, first upon the Native Americans sustained and perfected, just as they had been sustained and perfected on countries A through Z, on locations A through Z, specifically to make uses of names, roles, more as collusion is right where no one wanted it to, so they would say that with the breaching method, blaming other things, others, ourselves for what it caused and keeps, and uses, like, for example, uses of the names of the sciences or the names of the people of the sciences to be evidences for what they are not. Or, and the opposite too. But in other words, for example, who disbelieves act. And we need to have, like, the countries A through Z. We have to understand not just that there's huge populations that aren't even on records of countries A through Z, and that's why there are border problems with countries that have all this technology. But it's all through the breaching methods, descriptions of law, readings and values of by statutes and precedents, roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases are used to plant transcripts. They are pretending they're not legitimately vetting people too. If that's what they were doing with the people with the name McCourt and DeMauro along Route 3 and with the name Zeno and a Brian Bowen and a Pete, I don't know, Pete, someone tied to a Czech Hasper is all along Route 3 and its conjunctions with the intelligence, foreign and domestic, involved with the World Trade Center attack. Well, let's go start, because increasingly these are people involved with the people on Valleycrest Street next to where I went to a kindergarten. And there's people, but there's a Kevin Harris also involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with Fred Grisette, with a whole bunch of intelligence, foreign and domestic, a whole bunch of people with Harper Hospital next to it have also been next to the colleges and universities, and at them roles with predicate acts with people with all ages and natures of campuses, planting evidences, and fake ties and fake natures of ties to people. But it's gotten away with where and how that has been. Self-value, where and how the breaching method employed other things, others or ourselves, simultaneously to be communicated for nature and for our founders. Our natures, our founders. Forgiveness is because the breaching method, nature shows us and our founders communicated for us to understand how everyone was guilty simultaneously, because they were forced to, because everyone's words were measured and maintained by a breaching method worse than just having been, but also having had complete possession over all natures of internationally monitored conversations, which were forced, entrenched roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, and psychopaths only capable of being or of being sensed through their own, including if that body is a majority of people, with voicing counters or voicings to overcome this, or proper by nature. It would be sensed and counted for, including if it is every single person. This is a method that came from since before modern religious messengers, who already didn't have, that nature of possession over people's quality aspects of human nature that can only be maintained not through the campus marcias, with the functions hyper additionally by the value and as the value of the republic for which we stand. But it has to be led by the where and how we discern. Every identity has a part. It's to discern it properly. Its complete identity is simultaneously greater than and more finite identity, and with active relativity to the part slash s that we could discern of it. So to discern the identity of the verb, we don't just discern it as the verb or as a predicate. In other words, there's also a gerund. Is a verb, but now it's no longer in the it's inflected. It's as a state that is no longer a predicate, a main verb, and we have the participle natures, the present participle and the past participle. See them being and how being about time slash forever nature. And so also see how the predicate is being valued. Also see how the infinitive, which is also a verb with the word to before it, the preposition. To is a preposition. To, from, for, like preposition. The word to, you put it before a verb, and now it's an infinitive. Infinity. In other words, infinite. We're talking about time forever slash forever nature. Because this is what we're talking about, the hyper invisible, but still discernible. It's also one of the things it is a distinct identity of hyper simultaneous nature. Again, that one that is not those species bodies, it is not ours, but it is both anyway. The hyper invisible, but still discernible. It is why and how there is a present participle, a past participle. They are coupled, they are grouped, and they're about time slash forever nature. It is a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. We are being shown with the invisible but still discernible. Not just of English grammar. And the ancients appreciated this in ways that a breaching method showed the names of the people of the sciences that they could no longer afford to have discerned where and how. It is demonstrated increasingly to people at all locations slash s. So the relativity of where and how there is a hyper-native, hyper-simultaneous system that no one could mimic, otherwise it shows to us. If we point out how people are mimicking it, we are sensed and our words are changed and faked, beginning when we are little kids. So we have to address how the overt criminal enterprises, private one killers, terrorists, people with the World Trade Center attack, increasingly people tied to Ray Reynolds and his educators, have rules of identity, theft, fraud, slanders, and with people on Valleycrest Street and Weathersfield, increasingly involved with police forms, interbranch, putting fake things in databases, intercities, next to campuses, and with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. And as rules with more people with a principal child upskirt nature and home break-ins in the area through time. And one more recent that has rules with the confessions tied to a Joe DeMoro. His rules with people on increasingly on Church Street in Old Weathersfield. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with John DeMoro's involved, etc. In other words, if a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusion slash S with them with that, and a Scalora family did on Facebook. I didn't respond because he's been planting evidences and identity theft, fraud, slanders with the intelligence, intercities, intra-cities, intercampuses. They're putting fake transcripts into databases of campuses where and how they have collusion with a whole bunch of other countries in the World Trade Center attack location slash S with people that have been using that. I'm sure he'll tell you we never had a class together. I never saw him inside of school ever. The one time they tried to make a fake exception by him yelling across a gym to me with passions to make it look like he knew me, a Sunday school. And then one time, he got into a car. He was walking in a Fred Grisette, who's one of the people who's a stranger who saw me out. He's one of the ones involved with O'Brien family, with people involved with a Mark Violet, people at Harvard Hospital next to it, involved with a whole bunch of different countries, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and medical families, putting fake transcripts in databases, collusion/S with all kinds of wire crime, mail crime methods, identity predicate acts methods at all ages and ages of campuses, and the differences of the collusions there, or roles of predicate acts with facts methods with the names next to the campuses, and exceptions. And that's manifest per how nature uses exceptions and exceptions. Nature, the ways we know, but also hyper additionally. Because this is also relative to where and how we know there's a theater, like things are called politics that are not really politics. There are countries with nuclear weapons, with hypersonic weapons that don't even need nuclear. That's how fast they come in. And that's their solutions through time, which is also hyper evidential. They're using what's serious to hide behind, the way the breaching method showed them they could. That suits and ties, counters, and all exceptions too, with the nature of debate, quality debate, aspects of nature of debate as criminalization of nature / hypercriminalization of nature. Nature shows us this. And why to word it this way. Why Native Americans are forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, distinctly from public schools and from private schools, to entertain other communicated for James Madison and our founders, the founders behind him and his plan, which is the only way to properly. There's no excuse for it when debating with Native Americans. Not debating when we're communicating with Native Americans, or trying to. In other words, the plan was to force the other founders, colonists, and everyone, Native Americans, and the other countries, not just England. Other countries were involved with those internationally monitored conversations, entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies, more than 13. Crazy, crazy, crazy laws and roles with them being and having been sustained against every single person since some ancient times. And it doesn't just exploit it there. It exploits it at location/S in ways no one fathomed. So everyone just adapts where systems are there. Everyone could no longer afford to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper, with nature proper. We've seen a lot of passions and emotion. In other words, where does it go when someone tries to stand up for the predicate acts with facts that more than we know? Right through the polling locations, the resource locations, we can discern they have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw too here. Clear. Our pace. In other words, forgiveness is because we have needs to blame the scientific value of a human fact, human nature breaching method. Nature and our founders communicated this to us. But that scientific value inside the communications of America's founders and inside the communications of other countries' founders, has been replaced. And then the breaching method showed them they had to hide nature's demonstrations of that too. I showed them they need to blame on other things other themselves, those demonstrations. And styles and natures of factory nature needing suits and ties, counters, exceptions as collusion / S. Right? Not wanting to it too. So wanting self-valuing motivations, narratives, natures, economy, etc. We're in some ancient trap. Forgiveness is because the only way not to give up and fight properly is to be blaming a human factory nature breaching method. That's one of the reasons why nature itself shows us that countries A through Z can agree to make, and knowing the species bodies is bigger than this. And at the same time, we could have, we know what we've been in these systems that we don't want to be. So we could jump in to help the individual leader's voice and the people at the same time. It's the difference that we're fighting to make the not the be led by the hyper invisible, but still discernible. Leaders are forced to hide things, but we can reveal them. But we can only do that the way the breaching method knew we would, and could, and shows people how to do things at each age of factory nature. Because the breaching method already had and has employments over the differences of the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, or the branches of government. The positive or negative, the contrast, the difference of that. All sides of criminal and civil cases, the private ones. No, criminal and civil, and the news at the same time, the sources, and the courts' names, and the difference of the intelligence tied to them, the correct state corrections offices, their prisons people. Increasingly, crime is roles, predicate acts with facts roles, and delusions with crime scenes, collusion / S, all kinds of natures of criminals before they were in their prison. Not by accident. We have the prisons left out their roles with predicate acts with facts methods. Natures of organized crime, way worse than they put little kids in jail for. And the people that work with those jails and their family members and people in conversations with them. Increasingly involved with predicate acts with facts method / S roles at all locations. Further with database identities of relativity. I'll miss it, but it's discernible. And then further where and how they are through campuses and or government. This is since before computers. Relativity / hyper relativity. And its words were all replaced or placed. Like things, I teach us things, but long. In other words, because of this. So the news stole me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. Ray Reynolds is increasingly one of the ones involved with intelligence with the World Trade Center attack. In other words, he'll tell you he was influenced to make to time where they make fake sides of issues and have all foreign names involved and the hyper foreign name involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with people putting fake things in databases at the campuses tied to it, trying to make like people know each other that don't. Like it has some increasingly people from Central Connecticut State University have roles with the Burstein family. And that name, I don't even know other names, with the intelligence at Central Connecticut State University that has been planting evidence on all sides of my house since I was a kid. And with people that from my grammar school that are involved with mayors and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and untimely deaths. Untimely death rolls at Trinity College with people that were on my street making confessions about that and other stuff they had roles with. And while they were trying to put a fake ties to me, because I had to, in other words, because they painted themselves in corners with that since I was a kid. These are people that went into the intelligence community, their roles with the intelligence community and conversations that are used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, but that's all they're capable of doing. Like when they try to make like, what are they going to do? They're going to say, oh, they're going to go fishing. You know how many things they make fake transcripts. The FBI, they have collusions with the other police forms, though. In other words, and they're refusing to identify themselves. Since I was a kid, all exceptions, exception nature show that they're using they faked conversations with the exceptions. In other words, so the police can't be trusted. That's recorded. Anyone wants to pretend other, they have to self-value fake things in databases. That's why they're switching and forging names and refusing to identify themselves legitimately on paper. They already faked and changed the paper, conversations and evidences. They're only capable with their family members of planting evidences. Increasingly, the ones there are ones next to the campuses, intercities involved with the same ones on my street and people that tied to them years ago. With this Phil Cololo involved planting evidences on my street with people with a Whiting forensics and a Joshua Julian and a Robert Rodriguez and others I don't know the names of from other areas that have been planting evidence on all sides of my street who have time, they were timed use/us of that were brought in as the ones involved intercities on the campuses, putting fake ties, fake natures of ties, and they put fake descriptions where there's real descriptions they put. They use truths for lies that way too. Like in other words, they'll put two people that are communicating, and they put people in fake words with both of them. Totally just made up. They just put fake transcripts on campuses filmed 24/7. So I'm in Wethersfield, Connecticut. These are people from Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut. Through time, increasingly involved with mayors and people next to parks and at parks and parks and recs further too, with all kinds of medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, also ones with badges and gavels, all kinds of natures of crime, organized crime, and tactically delusions wrought. In other words, so you guys had unnatural impositions specifically to make your responses used remotely and self-value, that having been. In other words, so all readings of statutes and precedents are criminally pointful and tactically delusions wrought, having left out what has been projected to us properly. The law values the predicate act to discern criminal insidiousness nature. I am not a lawyer. Again, too, Trantolo and Trantolo, they are demonstrating confessions to me about their roles. Also, with a whole bunch of medical people tied to WFSB and Fox Connecticut News and names next to them. Foreign and domestic military involved with the World Trade Center attack, including the Saudi attackers before and after the World Trade Center attack. That's one of the things that the fake conversations with me after the World Trade Center attack about it, that WFSB pretended while they were forcing a proven principal child abuser and more digital and phone crimes with the kids and retired police chiefs from Wethersfield involved intercities with WFSB through time and with Fox Connecticut News people and WTNH and names next to them. Next to WTNH is the FBI, also involved with Paul Kelly. A whole bunch of people tied to a Paul Kelly that pretended to know me, but just because he was next to me, I didn't even respond to him. I mean, he didn't speak to me directly. And I didn't make any conversations in the car. Increasingly, people were planting evidences all along Ridge Road, make fake exceptions of knowing me, make confessions. As people that are brought up in the news, planting evidences there years later, too, all along Route 175. There's a Justin Klevinskis, and they're involved with a whole bunch of people tied to the Central Connecticut State University, and the FBI has like people with the name Carone, two twin brothers and a Jamie Carone. I don't know if they're related, but they have roles with Central Connecticut State University Also with people with the name, um, it had something to do with their roles with the campuses putting predicate acts for facts, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. They take pictures by timing where people are going to be. Increasingly, people at Hartford Hospital are involved with them at town lines. They might be military. They might, might be international. I don't know. In other words, but they have roles with people involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders. In other words, and what I said about them with that had something to do with the FBI director, and that kid's on. I was in the woods, and I went in the path, and I was looking because someone told me there was pot growing there, and it was like dark at night. And I'm looking at it, and I didn't know anyone was there, and then someone, I just all of a sudden I got like put into a wrestling position, and they pull you in like they can break your back or whatever like that. But then I went, and the kid let me go, so I had no hard feelings. In other words, but then, in other words, he has something to do with a Perone family, a Danielle Perone, and a Thomas Perone, and their family and their neighbors, and their rules with people involved with some black KKK Confederate flag themed, Latino themed, and interreligious spots themed differences rackets with their rules with identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never had classes with them. These are people increasingly with people from other areas I've been planting evidence on my street. I never saw them on my street. Never saw Tom Perone on my street or Danielle Perone on my street. They're involved with a whole bunch of people that live near them. Involved with wire crime, mail crimes, false flag, police sports, with all kinds of criminally formed roles with criminally formed influence uses and of all kinds of natures of investigators. Increasingly, the roles with the religious spots in corners of streets. I don't know the name of the corner of the street near the Perone house, and there's something to do with conversations with people with Mr. Hagenbar. I never had a personal conversation with him. Anybody put me in fake conversations with him. Mr. Hagenbar is increasingly involved with. See, they're putting fake ties, fake natures of ties between kids, and they're using truths for lies. They're fishing for their with other countries at the same time, with various natures of federal criminals and organized crimes roles, with all natures of campuses, all ages of them connected. Increasingly, people at and next to each of the campuses I went have collusion/S with people with wire crimes and false flag police reports. With next to the campus I went when I was in kindergarten, and roles with the people with the educators of a Ray Reynolds, and their roles putting fake things in databases and delusions with their family members 2 years later, increasingly involved with doing that. In other words, so I don't know them, and they're gonna confess this because it's recorded anyway. But increasingly, whiting forensics has roles with them too. People on Valleycrest. I never saw them at the Weathersfield Shopping Center or at that what's it called? Town Line Drive Shopping Center. That is involved with a John DeMore repeated confessions about that, and people tied to his roles brought up with Saudi attackers. Also, forced roles, Saudi attackers, where used remotely was simultaneously the name of Saudi Arabia and the name of America, but defended through our own as collusion/S, through their own use of location/S as collusion/S with federal evidence stacking. In other words, a whole bunch of Eric Oliveri has roles with a whole bunch of people at and next to the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices involved with planting predicate acts in databases, identity thefts and frauds with kids and adults, where they extort them if they don't hide and fake things and make them up or indoor self-valued roles with that against other students, which are, and the difference of that or the use/s of the location and the timing of it. Increasingly, these are people involved with from off my campuses, some black, white, KKK, Latino themed, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and people on Two Route Highway, involved with a Victorian house, involved with a Phil Cololo. In other words, also involved with wire and mail crime acts and methods, interagency and interbranch, like their Facebook pages. The Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court and of Hartford Hospital, they have roles with some sexual and medical offenders of kids, including with Hartford courts and their family members of foreign and domestic military. One of the further child abusers roles confessed there's a what do you call it involved? A Lance Cuddy. I never had a word of conversation with Lance Cuddy in my life. And people with a place on Park Street, Alina's Pizza, involved with the Daryl Sullivan, involved with more child offenders, leaders of kids, including with the lawyer of a Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. His lawyer, Robert Chevalier, and his co-defendants and their family members have collusions also with other past child abusers, leaders of kids first forced, years apart, with had use/collusion/S roles with that, and with the interbranch, even black, white, female judges involved with the police forging and switching names, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids. A Leahy family is also involved with them, with a Brian Silver with New Britain Superior Court. A whole bunch of people that know my name, I don't know their name, tied to the same house/S, involved with wire crimes with them, all sides of criminal and civil cases with themselves and with other people, putting fake things in there at the same time with the other countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. People in my area and the police confess that people with the name Scalora are involved with them with that. And the news that attached me to fake conversations with them about the World Trade Center attack at the same time. And that's after the attack. No, these are people involved intercities and intrastates with Washington, D.C., and with World Trade Center corruption. As the names next to us, Scalora is one of the names involved next to the World Trade Center, and with names at the World Trade Center, and with names with the court next to it, still being covering up, using right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. Originally, still, they all natures of investigators use remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. They're increasingly recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirm they have their roles with the community center and all sides of it, involved with identity theft, fraud, centers that are on and off campuses behind people's backs and trying to make fake exceptions that show the same, but they're not letting that be shown because they've been putting fake things. They already use the location/S remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Don't forget that's what we're paying attention to here. Black pupils, and with the breaching method replaced from the founders as a scientific value from the communications of our founders. Here, it is time. Please, Judge Napolitano, get them on paper, one name in sequence. They got these people like this Robert Rodriguez involved with people with the name Scalora, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, intercities through time, behind my back. And they're involved with people with violence on my street and more sexual and medical offenders of kids and demonstrated roles with that and confessed roles with it. People involved with a Bob Chase and a Phil Cololo involved further. So there's going to be violence, in other words, that you guys need to prevent. You know, there are murders involved too that you guys could have prevented. You can't follow mandated law. There are untimely deaths that you guys have collusion with because you don't follow mandated law and you stay collusion with these names involved with this. It's not legitimately with the interbranch and foreign. You know the ones Cololo and Smith. They're not legitimately with the military, with the foreign and domestic at the Weathersfield town offices. They're not legitimately with sitting there. Get them on paper. Get them to unblock the posts on the government access television. Chop chop. We'll get them on paper. World Trade Center. Let's go. Who disbelieves? Get the Who Disbelieves Act up. I'll show you how to force equality of fact, human nature, capable of liberating the Constitution unabridged, and why and how we have rights that are too numerous to list them. Other is recorded. Then was even, in other words, mass fake things stacking and cover-ups of that. Faked identities of integrity, collusion / all location, all natures of difference of it, and next to it. Increasingly, next to parks, are people involved with the intelligence. In other words, increasingly, New Britain's Central Connecticut State University affects confessions intercities to kids and adults, and to make it look like people had conversations, and there are connections between the people who did that and the people that are involved with the interbranch forging and switching names with various natures of organized crime figures and criminal enterprises and child abusers, leaders of the kids at the same time. Extortion roles. In other words, you guys have roles with abuse is clearer than day. Sickly, distinctly, but connected, multi-front against elderly, veterans, middle-aged, and little kids' voices. And you have roles blaming other things, others themselves, for your motivations for roles with that. It's not because they're not doing their homework. It's not because they're doing it. Why and how you have, in other words.